one-eyed Willie stole treasure once. It was full of rubies and emeralds and diamonds. Diamonds. And then he loaded it all up onto a ship. And they sailed away into the sunset until the British king, he found out about it, and then he set up this whole armada to go out after him. And then the armada, it took him a couple weeks, but then they caught up with Willie, and then... Shut up!
Quiet, numbskulls, I'm broadcasting.
Hey kids, welcome to Grumpy Nostalgia, the Second Lick Cinema podcast, the show where we go back to that blockbuster new release wall of our memory, grab a copy off the shelf, pop it in our VCR, and see what time has done to it. I'm Justin, that's Mike.
Bebop, bebop, aloo, shebop.
And together we're here to help you navigate all the landmines littered down memory lane. So that took me 7 times to get that out, guys. You didn't were privy to that, but couldn't get the words out today, Mike.
Just stumbling around here, you're like the verbal equivalent of chunk.
I think it was some sort of subconscious trigger to not want to talk about this movie, but here we are now. We made it, right?
That's right.
So, gang, we're getting near the big holiday weekend here, and big blockbusters are the kind of thing to do during those holiday weekends. So we thought we'd go way back in the time machine, Michael. What, 40 years?
40 years.
Yeah, so
wow.
We're going to talk about the Goonies.
The Goonies. Never say die.
Hey, you know what else they never do? Shut the hell up. My God.
Yeah.
I think this is the only movie script ever written where the only punctuation was exclamation points.
It's like Steven Spielberg stream of consciousness, kids.
Yeah, it's like what would happen if you cast Curly from the Three Stooges in every role of your movie? Okay, well, so we had hard enough time getting started, Mike. Why don't we just jump in and get this over with? So, this was directed by Richard Donner. Mike, we know him. He did Superman, a couple of the Superman movies. Well, he tried to do the second one, but they kicked him out. He's also famous for The Omen, all the Lethal Weapon movies, Michael.
Yeah, that's where the affinity for Curly seems to come through from the Three Stooges.
Yeah.
Interesting.
He died in 2021, sadly. Had quite the legacy. Did a lot of cop shows, Streets of San Francisco and Kojak and all that in the 70s. So, but yeah, he took the reins on this one after several other directors said that I can't handle this. It was written by a director as well, Chris Columbus, who we know from the Harry Potter movies, among them, and Gremlins and other things like that. He also wrote the movie 9 Months, right?
Yes.
Sharing a co-writer credit here is also the producer, Steven Spielberg. And I think we all know what he's famous for, one way or the other, so we'll just kind of keep going.
Duel.
Yes, exactly. This had a $19 million budget, Mike.
Holy mackerel.
Yeah, I started to think about where that $19 million went, because it didn't have to pay the cast anything, because they're all just a bunch of kids making their debuts for the most part. I'm sure John Matuszak didn't have a big... asking price, but
maybe the recreation of the Spanish galleon.
Perhaps, maybe the special effects.
The slot I did see they had a water slide credit in the.
Of course they did.
A company must have paid for that.
Of course they did. Yeah. But it was released on June 7th, 1985, as we mentioned earlier. So, Mike, we talked about the salary, and we know it didn't go to any of the cast, but let's talk about the cast anyway, Mike. So why don't you roll out the hit list here? Yeah,
this is one of those casts where, like, at the time, you're like, oh, I kind of know that guy, but I don't know that guy. But now you look at it like, wow, they was loaded with, future stars, like... We had the Goonies that were made up of Sean Astin. Everybody knows him from Icebreaker, but, maybe a couple other movies.
Spielberg debut.
That's right.
Film. Yeah.
And it shows. It really did show. It was a little... He wasn't as polished as he was, later on in, like...
Samwise.
Rudy. Yeah, Samwise. Josh Brolin, who, just maybe a little Hollywood nepotism here.
Yeah.
That famous dad who was a, 70s...
From The Car.
B-movie icon, yeah. And I don't know if his mom, Barbara Streisand was a stepmom at the time.
No, that's his mom.
I think that was later on. Oh, it is his mom?
Yeah.
I didn't realize Barbara Streisand was his mom. Okay. I didn't realize he had kids.
She's the mother of Mother of Thanos.
I thought she would have been with Barry Gibb. Hey, who knows with these people? Corey Feldman. This is our third Corey Feldman movie, I believe.
Oh my God, we're up to 3 already.
Yeah, and he plays Mouth. What was this guy? I forgot about. Sean Astin is Mikey. There's a Mike or a Mikey in every 70s and 80s movie, and that's unfortunate.
He's named like my name.
Josh Brolin plays the brother, the older brother, who's, I think at the time Josh Brolin was probably in his 20s.
He looked a little more hirsute than the others. Yeah.
Yeah. You had Kehu Kwan. He was famous for being Short Round in Temple of Doom.
Fortune and Glory.
He was kind of went away from acting, and all of a sudden wins an Oscar for Everything, Everywhere, All at Once. I was like, wow, where have you been? Apparently,
yeah.
He plays Data, which is very annoying because I kept wanting to call him Data. I think most people would pronounce that, especially after watching, Star Trek Next Generation, but that's just me. You had the two girls. You got to have two girls in there. So you had Martha Plimpton playing Steph, I want to say. And I forgot the other girl's name, something Green.
Carrie
Green.
Yeah.
Andy. So she's the other, other girl that was there. Just for
just there to be kissed and be scared.
Yeah, be scared of skeletons. Then you had the bad guys, where they were played by they call them the Fratellis, and the mom is Anne Ramsey from Throw Mama from the Train.
Owen loves his mama.
Owen loves his mama. Owen loves his mama.
And very pleasant woman, very nice voice. Very, you can see how she's a real charmer. She has 3 sons, apparently. One of them is played by Joey Pants, and then
there we go.
What I would think would be one of his early roles. I can't quite be sure of that, but
yeah,
he wears a toupee in this. This is very good.
What's that on your head? What's that on your head?
Robert Davey, who is always kind of a bad guy, pseudo bad guy in most of all movies. He's cocky FBI guy from Die Hard. Blows up the helicopter.
Right.
He's a bad guy in a James Bond movie, and he has a pockmarked face, so he has to play a bad guy. And speaking of pockmark, you have the other guy, the Sloth, played by John Matusak, who
quite the looker.
I was thinking it's funny how many good actors that come from the NFL were defensive guys. You think of Fred Williamson or Fred Dreyer, Merlin Olsen, Bob Golick. And John Matusak, who I have a couple football cards from when he was with the Raiders. And I always got him mistaken for the guy who played Ogre from Revenge of the Nerds. And that always bothered me. I was like, is that... And they looked so similar, Not the same guy, obviously.
Yeah.
Sadly, John Matusak passed away from, what kills a lot of NFL guys, prescription drugs.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's most of your... I can't forget Cyndi Lauper, and Pepsi Cola. Pepsi Cola is probably the most shoehorned ad placement I've ever seen in a movie in this one. Next to Cyndi Lauper, who just appears on the television singing the title song of the movie, and while they're sitting around the room, I was like, "Wow, really? How blatant can you get?" Anyway, that's your cast. And
okay. Well, thank you, Mike. Just a couple of notes about that cast and the making of the movie. The sound editors have a lot of, if you notice, Mike, there's a lot of disguised profanity. There's actually 19 shits mentioned in the movie, Mike.
19.
That's about how many I gave to watch this movie, but
wow.
But they strategically buried some of the profanity in with some of the crosstalk, which was basically the entire movie. So when they did get played on commercial television, it would be easy for the audio engineers to edit that out. So I guess
really,
yeah,
that's clever.
Interesting strategy, I suppose.
Yeah.
The actual house, the Goonie house, Mike, was actually a tourist attraction up until 2015, but they had to close it down because of the sheer volume of tourists that would come. The owners of the house couldn't take it anymore, so they had to close it down.
I thought it got made into a golf course. That'd be ironic.
Yeah, you were just there, right? You were in that area a few long ago, right?
Astoria, yeah, Astoria? It's a good town. And they didn't really utilize a lot of it too much. I mean, it's a very hilly town. There's no way they could build a golf course, but that's not even for the I didn't see the docks. I saw a marina, but I didn't see any goon docks. I was looking for it. And the little beach where they go that has the 3 rocks.
Yeah,
that's like 30.
Like Cannon Bay. Cannon Bay, yeah.
That's like 30 minutes away. So good luck getting a bike up and down those hills. But hey,
Whatever.
It's Hollywood, baby.
Yeah, we'll talk about some of the inconsistencies here as we go, Mike. So, 1985 was a monster year for movies, and we'll talk about the year as we go. But in the theaters when this movie came out in June, prior to that, you had Rambo 2, The Awakening, in the theaters, along with Jim Cotta.
Oh,
and you had also had Fletch, and I think the last Roger Moore on The View to a Kill.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Grace Jones, right?
Yeah, that was all out in early June and May. This came out on June 7th, as we talked about, along with the movie Perfect with our friend John Travolta.
This is called foreshadowing, audience. This is you're getting an idea that when we get to the end of this podcast, we're going to name some of our favorite movies from this year, and it's tough. You look through the list, and there's not a lot of there's a lot of chunks of corn in that.
There's a lot of like cash cows, but I wouldn't call it an artistic renaissance.
Yeah, not at all.
But interesting year, and that's why we kind of want to talk about it. So, following week after this, it was followed by Prizzi's Honor, which is one of those movies that kind of just encapsulated what we just kind of described there. Also, Cocoon, Mike, starring Wilford Brimley, among others.
Oh yeah,
yeah. The top movie that year was, of course, Back to the Future, Rambo, Rocky IV, and then the Goonies was actually the number 9 film that year. This was a pretty big hit.
Okay,
For that. As we
think
go.
with Spielberg's name, and you had summer release, and if Pepsi's putting its money behind it,
First thing I noticed. Speaking of big hits, let's talk about the music scene, Mike, on the radio. And the top song the week this came out was "Everybody Wants to Rule the World" by Tears for Fears. In the second spot, you had "Everything She Wants" by Wham! Exclamation point. Wham! He had "Axel F" by Harold Faltermeyer.
Hey, we just saw a movie he did music for.
Yeah, I only mentioned him because he did the Top Gun anthem from the podcast we covered on our last show. Guys, check that out if you haven't heard it already. Number 4 was the song "Suddenly" by Leslie Sebastian Charles, better known to us, Mike, as Billy Ocean.
You wake up and suddenly you're in love.
I was doing some homework on Billy because I have no life, and he has a massive career, Michael.
Yeah,
if you look at the string of hits he put together, and he's got he's a member of royalty in England. He's an MBE, and I mean, just from English R&B, he's like the top guy to this day still.
Wow.
So there you go, Billy Ocean. Just get into my car, Mike. And then the 36th rank on the top 40 was "Goonies Are Good Enough" by previously mentioned Cyndi Lauper.
What about that REO Speedwagon song? Was that in there? I guess not. That was a piece of trash too from this movie that was kind of glossed over.
Yeah,
but you can get it on Epic Records if you're inclined to get the soundtrack.
I'm not. Oddly enough. So what else is going on in 1985, Mike? You can get yourself a Cabbage Patch doll for $49.95. And you think about the rate of inflation, that's pretty expensive for its time.
For an ugly rubber-faced doll, yes, I agree.
Well, as we mentioned before, I dare anybody look at a Cabbage Patch Kid right in the face and not laugh. And I think just down the road from us, Mike, in Georgia, you have the farm where those things are born, right? The factory for the.
You had it right the first. Your 40 slip said it all. Burn, baby, burn.
Yeah, of course. This is also the year that Michael Jackson bought the Beatles catalog for $47 million. So still have mixed opinions about that.
Along with the Elephant Man's bones.
Yeah.
Probably a spinning spree period.
Yeah. It's all this while sleeping in a hyperbaric chamber every night. Pretty impressive.
With Corey Feldman?
Now, be nice. Albert Cosell retired, Mike, so he can spend more time drag racing.
Truly a sight to behold. A man beat The once great champ, now a study in mumpishness. No longer the victory-hungry stallion we've raced so many times before, but a pathetic, washed-up, aged ex-champion.
Yeah, this was a forced retirement. Yeah, this is after he got fired from Monday Night Football. I remember that.
Yeah,
He kind of went to he showed up on Better Off Dead later, but yeah, he's. I mean, he made a certain remark about a Washington Redskin receiver that will go down in infamy.
There you go.
Yeah.
F. Murray, one of our favorite actors, Mike F. Murray Abraham, won an Oscar for Amadeus this year. I always like to talk about F. Murray whenever we get a chance.
I just picture that granny ad from Scarface, and I can't get over it. That little.
I love that he just can't go by Murray. It's got to be F. Murray.
F. Murray.
Or whatever F is.
Yeah.
Let's go by that, F. Murray. But whatever. Who are we to judge? He's the Oscar winner. We just do a crappy podcast. So
that's right.
We were playing Super Mario and Hang On and Paperboy in the arcades, Mike. Those were the big games. We lost hockey great Eddie Shore. Old time hockey Eddie Shore that year, Mike.
Was he a Blackhawk, I'm assuming?
I don't remember.
Okay.
He was just immortalized in a slap shot when Newman's trying to rile up the Hanson brothers. He mentions Eddie Shore, and the carnage ensued. This is the year the Blockbuster opened, my former employer, Mike.
It's still the last one who left is still in Oregon, right?
Yeah, I think that one closed down. That one closed down, and the last movie that was ever rented is This Is the End. And yes, they had to return it. It seems kind of silly, but whatever. The interesting about Blockbuster, what their business model that really put them over the edge with a lot of the mom and pop shops, is they actually put copies of the tapes on the shelves. A lot of the smaller stores didn't do that for fear of theft and things like that, but you could actually see what was in, and they credit that to their success, as well as their revenue strategy of charging late fees and very cryptic announcements on when the movies were due. I remember I worked there when we had the 3 days for $3 thing. But we didn't tell people that the first day was the day you rented it. The third day was the day you brought it back. And I had to explain that about 50 times. They actually generate about 20% of their annual revenue through fees, Mike. Yeah. Just like credit card companies, but they get to keep going, and Blockbuster doesn't. I don't understand. There you go. All right, Mike. Well, I think we reminisced about 1985 enough. We're having a hard enough time getting the words out tonight, so why don't we just get the movie started here so we can get out.
Roll it.
All right, so Mike, there's nothing else to say. Why don't you hit the button? So our movie opens up with a panoramic shot of the Goondocks in Astoria, the coastline of Oregon, I think. We learned out through some, I guess, exposition here. Just everybody's talking all at the same time that the Astoria Country Club is foreclosing on a bunch of homes to turn into a golf course, including the homes of all of our major characters here. We get introduced to the gang. You got Corey Feldman, of course, who got the role, Mike, over Corey Haim. They both auditioned for the role of Mouth. But
the irony.
They didn't know each other, but they met each other at this audition, and it produced a lifelong collaboration, Mike.
Boy, he looked too much like a young Sean Astin. I've been wouldn't worked.
But the main characters here are little Sean Astin, he's Mikey, and his older brother Brandon, played by Josh Brolin here, and their gang of friends come in. That includes Chunk, Mike.
Oh yeah,
we all love Chunk.
Do we really love Chunk?
No, and
I don't understand that.
His entrances here is often, the truffle shuffle. Mike remembers the truffle shuffle. He was actually didn't want to do that because, unbeknownst to the producers, he got chicken pox after he was cast in this role, and didn't disclose it because he didn't want to lose the role. So lifting up that shirt had to expose some of those marks. He didn't want to do that, but he saw the way. We also get, is it Data? He said, Mike, Data here.
Data, yes, Data.
Yeah, played by Oscar winner Kihei Kwan, and he's like the little Inspector Gadget, Mike. And they're all faced with the same predicament of their houses being foreclosed by the bank. So, my first complaint about the movie, Mike, and there's several, but I challenge anybody to tell me there's actually a script here. I just think the producer said, "Okay, you guys just keep talking. It's got to be ad libbed." I mean, they just
It's well, it was so surface level. It just seemed like it was just kind of
just
okay. You're going to be here for a little while, then you're going to be here for a little while, and then you're going to be here for a little while. They'll just talk.
And you hear you say this, so
yeah.
So kids being kids, they run up into the attic of their house and they start rummaging around and they find a map, Mike. the one map of the treasure of One-Eyed Willie.
Love it. Love the One-Eyed Willie.
Yeah.
I don't know why One-Eyed Willie writes everything in Spanish. Obviously I don't know how he got the name Willie.
Should be a Guillermo, right?
Something like maybe a Diego or just something that sounds I don't know. Whatever.
Yeah, Uno Ojo Guerrero doesn't have the same ring to it, I suppose.
I guess. And let me say, Mal's, his knowledge of Spanish is like, wow, incredible. Like some of the words he could decipher off that map written in 1630s. He's pretty darn good translator.
Pretty smart kid. Well, he is wearing the members only jacket, Mike. So let's give him credit.
And the purple rain shirt. You can't look at that.
The dichotomy there. I don't know where to start. So they find they decide that maybe they can find this treasure. They can save the family home. So of course they get on their bikes and they ride out to the coast. Which is roughly, as you mentioned, Mike, the geography there is about 40 miles on hills. But hey, it's Hollywood. Who cares? They come across an abandoned seafood restaurant, and they what I like here, Mike, and I thought was awesome. They use that doubloon, right, and they hold it up and hold it against the horizon, and like the pictures match the. And I thought, wait a minute, they did that in Rise of Skywalker the same way.
Yes,
and everybody just fell for it. It was
J.J. Abrams learns from the best.
Little J.J. So the currency is never wrong, Mike. So they follow the clue and they head out to this abandoned seaside restaurant, and they see that there's a little access to the cellar through the fireplace. But Mike, unfortunately, the local that's also the local hideout for the bullies here, the villains, Mike, the Fratellis.
Yeah, they're very. I mean, we'll as you watch the movie, you realize that like they're supposed to be like slapstick villains, but they're actually shooting people in the head.
Yeah, well, an emphasis on slap.
I guess so.
I guess I read that Anne Ramsey actually really did slap the guys in real life. She was told to actually let them have it. So when Joey Pants is getting smacked around, that was real. There's a very Three Stooges element to them, for sure. It was. But yeah, so they find they don't like the kids, nosing around, of course, because there's like Scooby-Doo villains, Mike. But so they kick them out. But they're curious to why those kids are there. So the kids come back that night under cover of darkness to explore, and they get caught by the Fratellis, Mike. Interesting side note here: the Fratellis, the band, the Fratellis, Mike, were famous for that song when the Blackhawks score in hockey.
Oh yeah.
They named themselves after the Fratellis in this movie.
Well, there you go.
Who cares?
Wow.
Yeah. So the kids go back and they get caught, and they manage to escape, except for the portly Chunk. He doesn't. He gets caught, and he gets kidnapped and held and for questioning, and
he's always hungry. You get it?
Yeah, because he's a portly lad.
I'm sorry. I know there's a lot of people that probably love this movie, so I apologize beforehand.
We'll get to that. Don't worry.
Okay.
But Chunk makes a lot of confessions that he doesn't need to, that don't exactly tie to what the Fratellis are actually asking about. He actually gets quarantined in a room that's occupied by the third Fratelli brother, which is the malformed yet lovable character named Sloth, which is disturbing as hell. I'm sorry.
Yeah, and they kind of wave it away as Anne Ramsey, the mom, dropped him on the ground a couple of times.
Yeah, from what height?
I don't know.
But he's got this like weird face, and he's like ear and right eye are controlled by animatronics, and it's something you just don't want to look at, but you do. But he's lovable and he's charming, Mike, and he has a baby face turn here. We'll get to that here in a minute. So the second and third acts are just this melange of thousands of crosstalks, kids yelling as fast as they can, talking as fast as they can. Adventures ensue, Mike. There's a lot of booty traps.
Booty.
They collect several pieces of gold and jewels, of course, and they actually come across the Inferno, which is One-Eyed Willie's ship in this underground cave. And if you're a little kid, you see all this stuff is exciting, I suppose, right, Mike?
Yeah, that'd be cool. I mean, I can't imagine being well.
Well, let's save that. We'll get to we're almost at the end, and then we can talk about everything else. But the Fratellis actually end up capturing the rest of the kids at this point, and they're caught, and their ill-gotten booty has been taken back. And the Fratellis now have all the treasure, and they force the kids to walk the plank on this ship. And then I think there's some gadgetry, and there's some other traps that they trigger that starts the cave to collapse, right, Mike? And that frees up Chunk, and Chunk and Sloth make their way to save the gang.
Yes, there's Captain Blood style, just like Errol Flynn movie you're watching.
So there's a little hole that's in the side of the cave that opens up so they can make their escape, and Sloth goes over there and
he holds the door.
He does the hodor for him. Yeah. And all the kids escape, and this is where Sloth and Chunk profess their love to each other. This is the most disturbing scene I think I've seen in history, where Sloth says he loves Chunk, but unfortunately, which is touching, right? But unfortunately, he's doing it while cradling his head precariously close to his crotch.
I know.
But it's a kids' movie, right? And we should be focusing on those things.
Just relax.
But so there you go. So they all escape. The cops immediately showed up unprompted to rescue the kids. They take the bad guys into custody, save for Sloth, who Chunk has developed
I'm sure his parents love the idea of Chunk just volunteering adoption of this giant behemoth.
He just voluntarily.
You're living with us now, Chunk or Sloth.
I love Chunk. The parents are like, he knows that his dad is Chunk's dad is dressed just like Chunk.
I know.
But so it's a happy ending, and I guess even in the book, Mike, I thought this was funny that it went so far as to, after Chunk adopts Sloth, they go so far as to give Sloth a bar mitzvah. That's actually in the book, the novelization. But there you go. So they're reunited with the family, and of course the maid, the Spanish maid that got ridiculed the first part of the movie. She's savvy enough to find that there's a big stack of diamonds, big chunk of big cache of diamonds in Mikey's little bag, and these were the worst fake jewels I've ever seen in my life. They look like blow pops.
I know. It looked like what you get as a little kid for like your pirate treasure. Wow, it's a real diamond.
But the parents look at these jewels and say, okay, well, and of course the guys from the bank are there forcing them to sign, and just in time, and they say, well, the value of these rubies and gems will save us, and there you go. So that's the ending. They're all happy. They're all hugging and kissing each other, and they're all looking into the distance. And Sloth has a bit of an episode here as he sees the Inferno sail away. Mike, the ship is actually broken loose and sailing the seven seas. Mike, and it's roll credits, roll Cyndi Lauper's song, and there you go. What I thought was funny about that ship, Mike, that was an actual ship. They built it.
Yeah, that's what I was figuring. Like the $19 million must have gone.
I think it all went to that ship. And the irony here is, like, when the shoot was over, they were trying to give it away, but no one would take it.
Oh wow!
No one wanted it, so they just had to just tear it down and just break it apart. So.
Oh boy!
Only we could find that angle on this lovable kids movie, Mike. But Cyndi Lauper plays us out, and you can go home now because the movie's over. So there you go.
Thank God.
Yeah.
At least it wasn't a Cheap Trick song.
All right. Well, okay. Let's see. Let's move on to awards and accolades, Mike. So this had a $9 million opening, which wasn't too bad. Did $63 million domestically, so very well done there. Another $1 million from spotty worldwide releases in various countries, mostly the UK. It got a couple Saturn nominations. Actually, Anne Ramsey won. I forget what she won for, but she won a Saturn award. Sean Astin won for the Young Artist Award, whatever those are.
Really?
Yeah, Corey Feldman, the guy that played Chunk, and Martha Plimpton were also up for those awards, but Sean Astin won.
Huh.
Yeah.
Mild surprise. I thought of the kid actors, he was probably the weakest of them, honestly.
Yep. Well, in 2017, it was entered in the National Film Registry for its cultural significance, Mike. June 7th is Goonie Day in Astoria as of 2010, Mike. So I think our next pilgrimage is set, I'm pretty sure.
I want to play golf there.
Yeah. One good thing is this is sequel and remake proof, Mike. All the original it's at least sequel proof because none of the original actors said they would do it without the original cast. Of course, we've lost several people in the cast since then, Mike. So that's not going to happen. So
no.
Yeah.
Well, they can reimagine it, I guess.
It could be reimagined, and there's been several attempts to do so. I counted at least a dozen developments for making this remake this again, but they've never been able to pull the trigger on it, Mike. So I don't know what to take out of that. Fair enough. So let's put it through our grumpy meter, Mike. This is the point of the podcast. This is where we kind of go back and review films we watch as young film goers and watch them again through the eyes of grumpy old jerks, decide how our opinions change one way or the other, Mike. So why don't you head us off, talk about your first watch and your most recent watch, and what happened?
What happened? She wakes up a lot and says that. I had never seen this movie before. I know it sounds bizarre, but yeah, first time I ever saw this movie was yesterday. I think I knew a couple of like the truffle shuffle thing and Never Say Die, and I knew who was in it, but that was it. So I saw this for the first time as a 54-year-old, and it's not the movie for me, obviously. It reeks. It just stinks.
Stop right there. You're good.
It stinks of the 80s. And that's it. That's what it was at the time. It was representing that time period, and the kids obviously were, like you say, there's no punctuation. There's just constant blah 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 blah. It has the good qualities of a Steven Spielberg kind of movie where people are introduced and you instantly know like their personality, which is kind of cool. Always like that.
Yeah.
About his stuff, like he can have a character. I'm sure he helped. I know he didn't do all the screenplay, but it had that kind of his imprint of a character being able to say one line and you basically know their personality. But my problem with this movie was that was their personality. There was no like digging below that surface.
That was very complex. Yeah.
Yeah, everybody's surface level. There's a couple of issues brought up, like especially by Dado, where he's like talking about how no one listens to him, and he's like just rattling, just talking. One of the scenes where in the cave, he's just talking. No one ever listens to me. Everybody thinks I'm a failure, and it's just like a side. He's just like it's like an aside, and it's like nobody even's listening to him, and you're like, why is he talking? And why is he bringing this up if they're not anybody talking about it to him? Obviously this is like a deep seated like problem with this kid, or even Mikey. They make fun of him early on because he says the wrong word for a lot of things, and then they play that off. And of course, he has asthma because they have to just throw that in as like he was able to overcome something. So he does have kind of a hero arc to him, but everything's kind of surface. And I kept thinking of the movie Stand By Me while I'm watching it, and how different that approach was. It was another kind of quest movie when they're going to go see a dead body, so it's not much of a story, but the interaction between the boys in that movie was just so much more to it. There was, you got to learn more about the personality, and obviously it's the tone. I mean, Goonies is not there to like provide introspection and like analyzing how these kids are going through, puberty and it's hard. But still, I would want just something a little bit more. It was just so like in your face. I will say the runtime was long. It was like an hour, hour and 53 hour. It was seemed kind of, but it breezed by. It was like really quick. The time in the movie is less than 24 hours. So you're like going through basically less than a day with these characters. But it was just too slapsticky, and just like you say, the talking just tone that down a little bit. It was almost like, and I know this is probably the attempt of it, but it was almost like an Abbott and Costello meet Blackbeard. It was like one of those kind of movies from the 50s where everything's kind of like, just supposed to be funny for no reason. And you can't, as much as I want to analyze, like, why were Mikey and Brand's parents the only holdout? Did the other parents just sign away their houses right away? Like, how was it? A story apparently already had a country club. Like, we see their pipes getting messed up. Why did they need another country club? What was the point in that? It was just a lot of silliness that was just there. And again, it's for kids. It's not for a 54-year-old guy. So it was bearable. Like I said, it went by so fast. I was like, wow, that was interesting. But it was just kind of silly to me. But it wasn't meant for me.
Well, there you go. So, Mike, once again, we've just carbon copied each other. So I didn't see this movie either.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I've lied about it for years. That's my shame. I mean, I knew enough about it to know what it was, and I'd seen these random scenes and all that stuff. But
I feel like when I was 14, when this movie came out, I was already kind of a curmudgeon. I was watching like
exactly, yeah.
I was watching, The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, and like old movies from the 70s and the 60s. I wasn't watching like some of these hip 80s kids movies. It did not appeal to me at that age.
No, and that's the problem. That's why we're being probably very much unfair about our take on this, because we missed the boat. And I can see I was too old. We were both too old when we saw this. Therefore, the charm of this didn't imprint on us, right? Exactly. I could see if I saw this at 12 or 11.
I feel the same way about like if I watch Sandlot now. Like I'm like, I didn't see that when I was a kid, and I watch it now. I was like, okay, it's a kids movie. Why are you so nostalgic about it?
Yeah, but this could imprint on you as a kid, and I understand why it's beloved by so many people. And this is one we never really thought we would cover. But we just found out right now that neither one of us had seen it, guys. We just I think we didn't even want to say it to each other.
Now this is proof there's no rehearsal.
There you go, guys. There's all your planning and pre-production for this show.
Yeah, you go.
You're welcome.
Now let's go share a bottle of fettuccine.
Yeah, but I tried to enjoy this, and I tried to look at it from the perspective, if I were the audience, then would I appreciate it? I probably would have, but I wasn't the audience, and I just wanted quiet. It was so bad. Even like the closed caption gave out. It's like even the closed caption on TV just gave up. It was like
it just shrugged. It just said, whatever.
Yeah, like it was just like a face palm emoji and like crosstalk. But yeah, it was. Me and my wife watched it together, and it was fun enough. And she had actually seen it as a revival in the theaters a couple years earlier. And I didn't make any mention that I hadn't seen it then either. But now it's out there for the tens of listeners that's a joke. But anyway, so there you go. I mean, that's our take on it, guys. It's not the movie's fault. It's just we missed the boat. So there it is. So not the most exciting film of 1985 by any means, but so 1985 was an interesting year, Mike. It wasn't full of like real art, but it was full of interesting movies. A lot of them made tons of cash. This is really the generator for a lot of film revenue for the era of films that we talk about.
Cash cows, as they say.
For this week's installment of You Just Made the List, Pal, we'd kind of go back and look at the year that was in 1985 and talk about our favorite movies of that year, our top five. A couple reasons. One, we've talked about a few already. I guess they're still in scope, Mike, if you want to bring those up again.
Oh, they're going to have to be.
But we wanted to see how close we would come out to the same list here, Mike. So I've got my five, and you've got your five.
Yes.
Those will stay. But let's talk about our favorite picks in 1985. why we like them, and why we think the other guy should have picked them. So, Mike, why don't you head us off? What's your favorite top one for 1985? No particular.
All right. Well, I kind of alluded to this earlier, like you were saying, but for me, there was only one movie I remembered as being a 1985 movie. The rest of them I had to look up. So,
yeah,
looking through the list of top like 200, 400 movies from 1985, I had a tough time.
Yeah,
I had a tough time. I can only pick 4 that I actually liked, and that's sad. One of mine is a movie that one of my friends really liked. I'll do that one first.
Okay.
He loved this movie. George liked this movie a lot. I think I need to ask him if he still likes this movie, but it was The Legend of Billie Jean.
Okay, not on my list. All right.
Not on it. Okay. It had I think Helen Slater, and she's wrongly accused of doing something and
stealing a bike.
Bike. Yeah.
Her brother stole the
Christian
bike.
Slater stole. Yeah. It wasn't
a little creep.
It wasn't. Yeah. It wasn't a. wasn't the Teenage Strangler movie.
No.
But yeah, apparently this movie really hit home with him and when he saw it as a kid. And like I said, he's still nostalgia baited by the movie. So that would be my first selection, which is a movie I actually have never seen. So maybe we should pull that as a movie before
all right
2025 ends. We can still make it a 40th anniversary kind of movie. But Legend of Billie Jean.
My bet is that George will disavow any knowledge of this movie.
I will ask.
As a functioning adult. All right. One of my favorite films from 1985 is a movie starring one of our actors from last week's movie. We'll talk about Real Genius, Mike.
Oh, yeah.
Starring Val Kilmer in a comedic turn here. Great film. It was one of those films that was on the early rotation in HBO, of course, so that helped kind of indoctrinate this into my brain. But it's set at a university level where focusing on a bunch of savants with working on a physics project, which they think is a powerful laser, which turns out that the military is tricking them into creating this weapon. And it features a bunch of eggheads and a bunch of nerds and living in a dorm but the science is real and it's practical and it made a lot of sense and
wow.
Morality of actually taking those steps to create a weapon and all that stuff were clever. Typical 80s kind of sex comedy stuff still in there. So still a lot of stuff that's not appropriate in today's world. But an interesting film nonetheless, and it's one of those things that a comfort movie for me. So I'm going to go with that one.
Comfort movie.
Real Genius, Mike.
See, I never saw it. I always associated it with like weird science, and I just assumed it was kind of a jiggle fest.
Came out the same weekend, I think. Yeah.
Yeah. I just there you go. I might want to.
No, it's actually it's a pretty cerebral at the end of the day.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Cool.
Yeah, you might like it.
Yeah. All right.
All right. So there we go. Mike, let's hear your next one.
This one we just mentioned a little bit ago. Better Off Dead. One of my favorite comedies.
Nice.
John Cusack is the down and out Brecken Meyer. What's his last name? Brecken
Meyer. Lane Meyer.
Lane Meyer. Yeah, I think the actor Brecken. Yeah. But yeah, he's a ski bum. He's trying to repair a car. With his French exchange student, he helps her out, and he has the nerve to finally ski down the mountain, and he finds out that his the girlfriend he really likes is not the girl he really likes. And
yeah, the K-12.
He learns how to cook hamburgers to Van Halen, and his mom is a really
everybody
bad
wanted
cook,
some, Mike.
so yeah, he wants some too. But yeah, that's my pick. Is Better Off Dead.
Great favorites. One of my favorites.
$2.
Favorites of all time. All kinds of jokes about that. It's a fantastic movie. Great pick. All right, so my next one is another comedy. This is an Albert Brooks comedy called Lost in America.
Oh, yeah.
This is a great film. He plays an ad executive in a midlife crisis who's infatuated by the movie Easy Rider. So he decides to sell liquidate all his funds and have a bunch of cash and have a big motorhome and they just want to drive across the country. But they decide to take one last stop in Las Vegas before they go. And his wife, Julie Haggerty, loses it all at the blackjack table.
Wow.
Loses all his money. And he's literally just stuck. He's lost. He's got no cash. He's in living out of a Winnebago, and this the trials and tribulations, the strain on their marriage, and the way he tries to get out of it is just fantastic. It's perfect Albert Brooks. It was cringe comedy before it was really hip and chic to do that kind of thing. But there's not a funnier movie in my opinion. It's just start to finish, just loaded with great scenes. So that's my next pick. Mike is Lost in America.
Nice.
All right.
He's always kind of an underrated comedian in my books.
Never gets his due, I think.
No. All right. My second, or actually third pick is Cat's Eye, which is
that was on my list. Okay.
It's like a Stephen King anthology. Sorry about that, but like I said, it was slim pickings for me for this. I was like, wow. But yeah, this one is interesting because it's 3 stories. And the loose thread connects them is this stray cat that kind of walks onto the scene of these different stories. One is about this guy who's trying to quit smoking.
Quitters Incorporated, yeah.
Yeah, it's taken from the Night Shift book, but they kind of expand on it a little bit.
Yeah.
And, it has this James Woods is trying to, he thinks he got away with it. And the way this clinic is run is very insidious. They show him they use the stray cat to show him what happens if he actually gets caught, and the cat is thrown in his cage. It's like shock therapy, and they. The best part is after they catch James Woods smoking in traffic or something, they find out his wife is in the cage and she gets the shock therapy, and they play it to 96 Tears by Question Mark and Mysterious in the background.
Freaks me out. Yeah,
she's hopping around in the cage, and and then the second story is the one with Robert Hayes in it, where I've mentioned this before, where he's like a tennis bum, and he cheats on like
a country club.
It's the mafia guy's wife he's having an affair with. So the mafia guy, hey, you got to walk around the ledge of this penthouse. If you make it all the way around, we'll let you live, and you can be with my wife, whatever. And the whole movie is basically, a whole little scene is him trying to get around, and it's, has my favorite part, and then you might have to edit this out, Justin, but he calls pigeons flying shit houses. I love that. And then he comes back, he wins the bet, but I'm not going to give away this.
Yeah, there's more to it.
Yeah, he does end up with the wife. And the third story, which is the weakest of them, is it wasn't even from Night Shift. It was a made-up story for the movie. And it has Drew Barrymore in there, and the cat shows up at her house in Wilmington, so hey, maybe she lived next to Nick Nolte's houseboat. But the cat fights off this ogre that comes into her room, Drew Barrymore's room, and terrifies
her. A little tiny one.
Yeah, and it's really creepy, but it's kind of
steals your breath as you sleep.
Yeah, it's it's the folklore, and they think the cat did it, so but really it's it's the weakest of the 3, but that's Cat's Eye. It was still a good movie to me. I remember it because I saw it on HBO 100 times.
Yeah, so, same here. Yeah,
it's one of those kind of movies in my mind. So that's my pick.
You don't really see the anthology movie anymore, like Twilight Zone or
this was like the tamer version of Creepshow. The
Creepshow's another one. Yeah,
was so horror filled, where Cat's Eye was more like kind of black comedy.
Yeah, those are great. All right, great pick. So my third pick is going to be. I'm just going to have to go commercial here for a second. I can just go with The Breakfast Club. I know you're not the biggest John Hughes fan, but this one was, I guess, it is as a time capsule. It's really kind of cool. Through these archetypes of characters that they have, not very diverse, by the way, but they all encapsulate one experience, that the major experiences that kids go through school, through growing up and developing into adults, and those things are kind of universal and timeless. And they use this, in the construct of these characters being in detention all day and stuck with each other and having to understand how the other half lives and all that kind of stuff. So I think it was a nice little, one act play of a movie that's kind of had these interesting characters, and that had all 5 of them had some sort of story arc. The jock and the princess and the nerd. They all started one way and ended up another. And it's hard for a movie to pull that kind of stuff off, and it actually did. And great soundtrack, of course. So, and it's set, Shermer, Illinois, Mike.
Of course it is.
The fictional Chicago suburb. But it's one of my favorite ones there. So I'm gonna go commercial, easy on that. But I'm gonna go with The Breakfast Club, Mike.
No, for a John Hughes movie, I think it's my favorite one. So
Yeah.
I can't argue with that one too much.
Equal parts hilarious and tragic and all that good stuff. So
yeah, for sure.
Yep.
My next pick is a movie called To Live and Die in L.A.
Ooh, good one. Yeah.
Yeah. For just the Wang Chung soundtrack alone, it's worth viewing. But they have like one of William Dafoe's first movies.
He's so great in that. Yeah.
As the bad guy, and such a creepy villain, in the movie. William Peterson's kind of the good cop, bad cop. He's looking for this, who's doing this drug deals in L.A. and it's just so slick. It's one of those movies I'd like to call it just a slick crime thriller, and I think it shows the grittiness of L.A. at the same time as showing, like I said, the soundtrack and everything about it makes it kind of almost look romantic in a way, and I always like that.
Yeah.
Movie, so.
But a great like neo film noir, incredibly violent. And,
it's violent and dark, but it's still like it's got the slickness of like a film noir kind of flick. So I like that. To Live and Die in L.A.
Great one, man. All right, so my next pick is it's kind of an art house film, and I talked about it just briefly before, Mike. But the irony here is it stars Kevin Costner. So I just wanted to test it out and see if it would pass. But it's a movie called Fandango.
Oh yeah,
and it was before Kevin Costner was Kevin Costner, right? And he just played as like a support character here, but it centers around a couple days in Vietnam era America, where these Texas friends have just graduated from college and they're on the precipice of war, and but it kind of focuses on Sam Robards, who's in love with this Susie Amos, and he feels like he lost his opportunity to be in love with her. Meanwhile, Kevin Costner also has the same love. She was with him before, and he lost her as well. But it's just these guys, this raucous, like alcohol-fueled road trip that goes south really bad, and they decide that before they go to Vietnam, they're going to give Sam Robards a chance to actually marry Susie Amos. So they shenanigans ensue, and they put together like this little Texas wedding. It's just very charming, very Judd Nelson's in it too, as the whining pro-American guy that is ready to serve his country. And they use him to use his car, but it was a gut punch of a movie because the themes behind it were just for a 14-year-old kid like me to understand how dramatic it was and how much it meant. It always kind of stuck with me and resonated. So that's like a little hidden treasure for me. That's the movie Fandango, Mike.
Yeah, it's still in that Kevin Costner was like trying period for me. Like he was actually an expressive actor who had an actual range of emotions as opposed to just the stoic Messiah character,
Yeah, he does the most to make sure that Sam Robards gets together with her, even though it's at the expense of his love for her. And the last scene is just him toasting her in the desert, with this ambiguous ending, like, where's he going to go now? It's just a great movie. So.
Oh, nice.
All right, Mike, it's your last one, and I don't think you have any honorable mentions, I think so.
No, unless you want to call Lady Hawk or...
Ooh, good one. I thought you didn't like that.
Nah, I really don't. I'm not.
Okay.
Legend? How about Legend? That's a good one.
That's a good one.
But no, my last choice will be Jagged Edge, which is
nice.
One of my favorite like crime thriller movies. Again, it's another but it's not involving drugs. It's more like a courtroom drama where it has Jeff Bridges, who's one of my favorite actors, is like a husband that's accused of murdering his wife, and he has Glenn Close as his lawyer. And it's one of those movies where did he or did he not do it? The whole movie is going that way. Glenn Close has a detective played by Robert Loggia. He has that. He's doing his best orange juice, voice. He makes the movie. Honestly, he's got a foul mouth, and this movie's great. But yeah, it's one of those did he or did he not kind of movies, and and there's a lot of courtroom shenanigans. There's behind the scenes stuff they're uncovering on this guy that makes her doubt him, but she's like falling for him at the same time. And I don't want to give away the ending because it's a 40-year-old movie, but still, the ending kind of makes it. So that would be, like I said, it's one of my most memorable, of movies that's like has one of those kind of like Presumed Innocent in a way, but it's almost that level of like crime and judge and jury kind of movie. So that would be a Jagged Edge.
It's a great pick, and it's really indicative of that era. In the 80s and 90s, Mike, there were probably 200 adult crime thriller mystery things like this that were written for adults.
Yep.
This goes on and on and on. There's hundreds of examples like this. Presumed Innocent, and things like that, where The Fugitive, or even that. It was like we talked about a little bit. When we talked about The Fugitive. Just movies like that were written for adults that had good characters, good plots, had resolution. Just something that's kind of missing.
Oh, I know. Great screenplay. It just works so well. You're right. It's like the only time you can see these kind of movies is like on episodic TV, maybe in like 6 or 7, episodes on a Apple or Amazon series or something.
Yeah. Well, I kind of ran out of things to talk about here. But I think my final one was just going to be kind of a gag one. I'm going to give away one. It was a 80s comedy called Just One of the Guys. Again, just one of those things that every teenager had to watch.
I see that poster in my mind.
Right in 1985, where this very attractive, tomboyish woman in high school, it plays on the sexual bias of the printing industry at the time, where she can't get a job as a woman, so she decides to go undercover as a guy, and basically just poses as a man in a different high school, and shenanigans ensue, Mike.
There you go.
But it was one of those things where, like, every kid saw this, and at least 100 times, and it was what we were watching at the time was things that had relative social value, but we didn't really realize it at the time. But it was an interesting take on that. So that's kind of my final one. And another one on those lines is The Journey, Natty Gann. Every guy that's over 50 knows who Merida Salinger is. Just every had a kind of crush on her as well. But that's my final pick. There is Just One of the Guys for everybody. I went on a strong one there, Mike.
There you go.
But that kind of encapsulates. We didn't talk about any giant movies here, Mike. And that was kind of the point, that 85 was an interesting year, kind of unique in terms of like, the big movies were the big ones, but all these movies were cash cows. They made tons and tons of money.
Yeah.
But kind of lost in the ether of that year and essentially that decade. But interesting look back. Okay, Mike. Well, that's probably all we should talk about. We should probably go to bed. Let's do a little bit of housekeeping here. So, if you like what you heard for some reason, don't forget to check out our Instagram page. That's at Grumpy Nostalgia. You can check out our YouTube channels as well. Maybe you'll be the one. But we have videos on there as well. You can send us an email at nostalgiagrumps@gmail.com. And don't forget to check out our webpage at grumpynostalgia.buzzsprout.com. You can find out everything about me and Mike. You can find out our favorite podcasts. You can find out all our entire episode. Our catalog is on that as well. If you're interested in hearing more episodes, we'd love to have you drop by and check us out. We are still looking for podcasters that are just starting out, maybe that we're looking to break through and find an audience. If you're interested in collaborating with us or vice versa, just give us a shout. Hit us up on our Instagram page through a DM or send us a message at nostalgiagrumps@gmail.com. We'd be happy to consider some collaborations if that's something you're interested in. So be on the lookout for that as well. All right, Mike, anything else you want to say before we get out of here, pal?
No, just Chester Copperpot.
Mike, you're going to come home with me now. You know why? Because I love you.
I love you, Chuck.
All right, so for Mike Shane, this is Justin, and we'll see you again next time. Oh, boy. Oh, that's so stupid, Mike.